topic. Today I have Midhu Bandari, who's a TV journalist and she's founder of Mental Leap. You can also see that designation right there. And of course have Arjun. He's a founder of Pivot. I'd let them talk about their businesses because I love both of them and their businesses so much. I've been following their journey for a long time, and literally seen them build in public. That as a concept in itself has been so exciting. So, welcome both of you. Any starting thoughts before we jump straight into the topic?
Thank you. Thank you for having us, Tanya. And we are loving watching you build Creator Chart in public too.
Great.
Yeah, no, just good to be here. Thanks for having us, and I'm excited for the conversation.
Awesome, great. So let's jump right in. Both, I think Arjun, let's start with you because I see you first on my screen. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey? And I'm happy to add in from whatever I know of you of LinkedIn. But would love for you to share how your journey has shaped up on LinkedIn. I've been seeing you active on the platform for about 2, 3 years now, but would love to hear from you on one about your venture itself, and second, how do you use LinkedIn as a channel?
Sure. And thanks again for having me. So, in terms of the LinkedIn journey, it really started in around 2021 or 22 even. Um, and I want to just set up some context before I share, what motivated me to start on LinkedIn. So, just I had been working in management consulting for about a decade before I started building Pivot in 2021. And when you are in a stable career, one thing I've realized, Tanya, is like, to be very candid with you, people don't always leverage LinkedIn to its best capacities, right? And the reason is because you're in your comfort zone, right? You don't feel like you need to collaborate with people outside your company or industry. Um, you don't need a new job opportunity, and there could be other reasons, right, that are just sort of demotivating you to utilize LinkedIn for its full power. And I was somebody like that till 2020. I was not using LinkedIn more than maybe once a month, just kind of checking messages, checking some posts every now and then. And that was the full extent of it. Now, come 2021, I had made this major career decision in my life of starting Pivot. And I'll get into that later, what motivated me to start Pivot. But basically, Pivot is a platform that helps people make smooth and successful career transitions, right? So this was relatively new even for me because I didn't have a background in tech, and I was creating a tech-enabled platform. B, I'd never been an entrepreneur. This was the first time entrepreneurial journey for me, like many of us in this room today. And C, I just felt that I wanted to go beyond my personal network to be able to be successful in this new goal that I had set for myself, right? Because if I just stayed within my comfort zone, within my network, I won't have been able to know what people who want to change careers or want to change jobs, what kind of challenges they are facing in their journeys, and what should I be building, how should I connect with collaborators or hire employees down the line. So all of these things I had in mind, and that's where LinkedIn really came in as a solution in my mind. That I didn't really have a specific goal, to be candid with you, when I first started, except that I wanted to connect with people who were going through a career transition, which was the main ICP or TG that I had in mind. And so in 2022, all I did was two things on LinkedIn for the first time. Number one was starting to create some initial content just around career transitions, right? So before I even knew what solution to build for Pivot, I just knew that there was more and more career transitions going to happen in the near future for certain reasons. So I started talking about that, right? I started talking about why career transitions are going to be the next big phase in the, let's say, corporate phenomenon or career phenomenon, like job changes were 2 decades ago. And the second thing I started doing was just connecting with people in this space who were also creating content and just commenting on their posts, learning from them how they got traction on their posts, or how they shared deep insights from their own journeys. So these were the two things that I started with, and I mean, I'm sure we'll speak more about the experience, but that's how the journey got started. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Arjun, and happy to, of course, like talk more about how that shaped up in the last 2 years. Now moving on to Mridu, I think around the same time you also started exploring, your venture Mental Leap. I know you were at working still right now working with TV18, and of course I've seen your career not just on LinkedIn in general in the media space. So it's been really exciting. So Mridu, what prompted you to start your own thing, and how did LinkedIn play a role in it?
So, to be honest, when I started my own thing, it was a project I was doing as part of my master's in entrepreneurship at University College London. So, I'd been working for about 16 years in the media, non-stop television life. And post COVID, I was feeling a little burnt out and I felt like I need to do something different. TV is very exciting. I love doing it. I love telling stories, but I need to do something new. I need to learn something new. And the whole thought was just that I want to go to the UK and study, and I got the Chevening scholarship. I applied for it. It's a fully funded scholarship for a 1 year master's program, taught master's program in the UK. And I didn't have a plan. Most journalists, when they go to do a second master's, study something like public policy, because that's the most natural fit that comes to most journalists. And I saw the modules. I found them extremely boring. Entrepreneurship was something that it has always excited me. So I created a show on MSMEs back in the day, which you worked on a couple of years later, funnily enough. And I was always talking to startup entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, SMEs on various business growth related topics on TV. So it was just a subject that I really enjoyed. And I thought, okay, it's a 1 year, enjoyment time in London, fully paid scholarship. And I will just go have fun, explore ideas, and just be in a global classroom and learn. And that's how Mental Leap happened. And when I started out, I started with a target market of university students and just finding mentors for university students. And then I soon pivoted from that because I realized that I don't really feel their pain as much as I thought I did. And I feel the pain of a mid career working professional more than anything else.
Hmm.
And then I got into helping. It's a career acceleration platform for mid career professionals and entrepreneurs. And we are offering a lot of cohorts, live learning based cohorts, one on one mentoring programs in various areas. Public speaking and communication is one, which is my forte. And I'm collaborating with others to offer different things in generative AI, in ESG, in gender equity, diversity. All of this is going to be getting a year or two. And so the whole thought of doing this, I'm sorry, is my connection lost?
Yeah, we can hear you, but your video is frozen. I was just gonna say.
So I'm just hoping you can still hear me
Now we can see you.
because
Yeah, we can hear you. You can
any
continue.
of you and
Yeah, we can hear you, Vidhu. You can
hi.
continue. Yeah, hi.
All right. So I will assume you can hear me
Yes,
and continue with that.
yes.
So yeah, so Mental Leap happened. Sorry, let me just
Cool. I mean, yeah, that's completely okay. While Midhu fixes like her internet connection, Arjun, we'll just move on to another question, which I've been thinking about because I feel like entrepreneurs are one of the like you said, ICP, ideal customer persona, that are usually very active on LinkedIn. Would love to know what kind of audiences are you seeing on the platform, and how did that really help you in figuring out your business problem? Something that in fact I hear from a lot of people that I work with, creators specifically or even professionals, is that they keep telling me that, hey, there's a lot of FOMO around content creation, around like doing your own thing, or trying something different in your career. And how much role does LinkedIn have to play in all of that?
Yeah, so I think it's a your multi-part question. I'll try to answer as much as I can. I think the first part, in terms of identifying the ICP, that was actually pretty critical for me in the initial stage of my pivot building journey.
Yeah.
Because again, I started from scratch. There was no copycat model that we are trying to replicate. Like somebody had built a similar platform overseas, and we are just trying to build it
Yeah.
in India. That wasn't happening, right? Like it does happen with a lot of other platforms today. So when things are sort of being laid the foundation for, you really have to experiment initially, right? Because you're going to fail initially. There's no way. I think if you're maybe one in a million, you might land a successful business model or successful ICP right off the bat. But in 99% of the cases, you have to experiment. And LinkedIn is a great platform, at least in my perspective, to do that experimentation, right? Because you can easily fail. There is no, I would say what it does is it brings down the fear of failure significantly, because, it's not like people are going to shame you or even going to remember a lot of the things that didn't work out for you, right? So people are there trying to do their own things, trying to build their own brands, trying to build their own careers. And so they might be there engaging with you, but at no point are they, I would say, even though there might be certain trolls every now and then, they're not necessarily looking to publicly
Pull you down.
kind of, yeah, exactly, bring down anybody.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a great launch pad in a way, because I could test out different ICPs. I could test out different types of content creation. To be very honest, the first year of content creation was pretty lackluster for me, right? I must have done maybe 2 posts a week on average, which is not something that most creators do when they're starting out with a tangible goal in mind. I
Right.
also was creating very diverse content. There was no clear strategy in place, because again, I was just throwing stuff in the wall and seeing what sticks. Um, and that was okay, right? I mean, there could be people who are like, oh, I wish I had done it differently. To me, yes, it didn't result in a lot of outcomes per se for my business, but it still helped me understand what not to do, right? What people don't want. And then over a period of time, there was much more clarity in terms of the ICP as people started to reach out to me once I was creating content more consistently. um, I wouldn't say that it's a specific community, right? I feel like my definition of community is slightly different than most people's definition of communities. I think it has to be like, give and back, not just take from the community, right? And
Agree.
also other things. But in terms of what I have been able to achieve is definitely built Pivot and myself as as the go-to place for people looking for career transitions, right? So there are people from all walks of careers and walks of lives who come to our platform today. It's not just one type of person. But if I was to maybe pinpoint the most common type of person that we attract, it's somebody with about 10 to 12 years of experience, right? And has either spent majority of their career in one domain, one industry, and are looking for breaking out of that role specifically because they feel stagnated, or they feel like they're not preparing themselves well enough for the next stage in their career.
Great.
So I would say that's kind of the ISP we have. And Tanya, I think we can maybe cover the second question later since Mridu is back. Would love to have some,
Agreed.
some
Agreed. But
Oh,
I
sorry
would love
about this,
to
guys.
start.
I don't know what's going on with the internet. I'm really
That's
sorry.
fine. That's completely okay. Arjun, thank you so much for sharing your perspective there, and I completely agree. Like, there's one line I always use, that LinkedIn is a platform of generosity, and that's something that I've seen with the community day in and day out. And like, just
yeah.
a second, it has to echo at the wrong time. But yeah, so it's something I've always noticed. And exactly like you, I think it has really helped me figure out my ICP as I grow the business, and really like figure out, okay, how do I cater to a certain kind of customer versus another kind of customer. Similar to you, you end up finding like these common problems and then looking at, how to solve them for your entire customer base. So thank you so much for sharing. And I thought I was doing a great job, Arjun, when you said, before you said that you used to just post twice a week, because that's what I do. And I thought I was doing a great job on LinkedIn with the posting, but now I know I have to ramp it up. But thank you so much for sharing.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, great. So, Mridu, you were sharing and telling us about your entrepreneurial journey. Would love to know how LinkedIn has played a part. You were talking about when you were back in college and how you took up the course and how that led to Mental Leap as a platform and the kind of offerings that you have. Why don't you tell us how LinkedIn has played a role in this throughout career transition that you were going through?
Yeah, so I think LinkedIn has always been a great partner on all my career journeys, and I would think I'm on two different journeys right now. One is, of course, moving from a full-time employee to becoming a consultant in the media. So I continue to anchor and I continue to do shows as a consulting editor and anchor at Network 18. So in that space, I would say when I was a full time employee, I think I was just using LinkedIn as a TV anchor and a content strategist, with my focus being on just telling people that, this is the upcoming TV show that I have. This is the kind of experience I had talking with these people. So whenever I would meet, especially global leaders, like I was privileged enough to meet Sir James Dyson, the man who founded the company Dyson, or economists like Rubini or Nassim Nicholas Taleb or Randy Zuckerberg when she was visiting India. So at that point in time, I would just share things that I learned from them and what that conversation would be like on TV, and post a link that this is upcoming and this is the conversation, and have a look and share comments. And I think as an entrepreneur, I have undergone a complete mindset shift because, firstly, I've become a creator in my niche, so which is coaching public speaking, coaching people in public speaking and communication. So I'm trying to create far more content, just sharing my learnings in this space, and also trying different content formats, experimenting with it. Secondly, of course, I'm using the platform to build my business. So, with a combination of trying to spread awareness about mental leap, and also occasional selling when a new cohort or new master classes or new things are coming up. Um, when I did my first cohort of Speak with Impact, which is my 12-hour live learning course in public speaking and communication, I actually sent out cold direct messages to about 300 to 400 people on LinkedIn, hoping that people would sign up, and 4 did. And to me, as a first generation entrepreneur who was selling for the first time, that was huge motivation that 3 people saw value and signed up from LinkedIn, and others came from other channels and networks. Similarly, my first B2B client came from LinkedIn because I'd shared some customer testimonials from 1 or 2 cohorts, and somebody saw it and they reached out. And then that led to more companies coming in. And finally, like till now, it has led to me training employees of companies in about 12 different countries. And really, I have spent no money on advertising for these things. I'm trying different experiments. So I'm trying out Facebook, Instagram ads for other things. But for these cohorts, I never had to spend money to get clients and B2B clients in the first place. And the third part, I think, has been my own learning. So I learn from people all the time from different fields. I engage with fellow entrepreneurs and coaches. I, of course, speak to a lot of them about what's going on. I love to see what coaches in different countries are doing. How is their content different from mine? What is it new that they're trying? How are they using tech in their business, and how are they scaling this up? So it's a constant learning experience. And aside from this, I think even on the personal branding side, a lot of guest lectures for B schools, LinkedIn lives, workshops for university students, even a workshop for Stanford seed entrepreneurs. All this came because I was a little more, out there on LinkedIn, posting consistently and talking about my work, which I absolutely did not like doing as an employee, because I felt, oh, your work should speak for itself and you don't need to market yourself and you don't need to tell anybody what you're doing, which completely changes when you become an entrepreneur. Because, like somebody told me very recently, if you don't promote yourself, who will? So that line I've used it on at least 4 LinkedIn lives by now. Let me tell you, that's the impact it has had on me. So yeah, so LinkedIn has been great. I think it's one of the nicer, warmer, more supportive communities on social media or professional networking, whatever you might want to call that. I think people are nicer here.
That's awesome. So I'd love to talk to you, Arjun, about this, and something actually I personally have always wanted to ask you. You had a very successful career back in the States, and I also know that you studied there. What prompted you to come back to India, and when you did come back, like what prompted you to start pivot? Like, I think you've not shared that ever with me at least, and I'd love to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, so when I first graduated from NYU, I think I was just 20, and I feel like most people who are in their late teens or early 20s, we don't always have full clarity of what we want to do, right? We grow up with a vision of certain careers being like the dream careers. Like a lot of people, kids want to be pilots, or let's say do something in acting and things that attract us on the surface level, but we don't have deep understanding of what we want to do. So when I was first graduating, I thought I wanted to be in consulting or finance, because those in New York seemed like the most attractive careers to be, right? And the high flyer lifestyle, and just the fact that you get to work with some of the biggest hotshots in the best industries out there, right in the center stage of business action in New York, that just seemed compelling enough for me to at least start my career there. And just to remind people, this was at a time when there was a financial crisis going on. So 2010, 2011, there weren't that many opportunities. So I wasn't thinking about passion and what really fulfills me and those kind of things. It was just like, hey, I just need a job right now. I spend a lot of money on my education and I need a job, right? So that's where it all started. 7 years I spent in New York, doing management consulting, working with some of the biggest companies in US, and working directly with their board of directors and leadership teams at a very early stage. To be very honest, I got pretty fortunate landing this gig in that time. It was sort of a crash course working directly with some of the biggest leaders in the industry. But what I also realized is, because of that accelerated growth and that exposure, I started to feel by my sixth or seventh year in my comfort zone. Meaning, I knew if I spent my career at that company, what the rest of my life would look like, right? And to some people, that might provide a lot of comfort and security, right? Which is great in today's times. That's what people are looking for, given the job market. But at that time, I think grass is always greener. So I felt a little more like, okay, I'm just in my mid 20s. Before I settle down completely, I need to put myself out of my comfort zone for really, further growth and career advancement purpose. So I'd never worked in India before, and I knew that it was a tough work culture compared to US relatively. Also, I had been away from home for more than half my life, actually, because I had gone to boarding school, then I've been in New York. So I felt like before I put my roots down completely in US, that I wanted to spend more time with family and friends back in India. So there was a personal motivation as well. So because of those reasons, really, I decided to pull the plug at my current, not my current, but my then current company. Um, I was on a green card track and on a partner track. And when I pulled both of those plugs, there weren't many happy people in that companies, because they had put a lot of effort into those things. But I feel like that was one of the best decisions I ever made for my career and for my life. It really helped me, like I said, get out of that comfort zone. And I think that is something that is very important today. Mark Zuckerberg said something like, the biggest risk you can take today is not taking risks in your career, right? And I mean, that is really true, because if you don't kind of get comfortable with uncertainty, with ambiguity today, there are so many external factors that will push you into that unfamiliar zone, right? And then you have to do it. You don't have a choice. So before others kind of create this, situation for you, you have to create it for yourself at times. And you don't need to always uproot yourself completely. I think you can do it in a more de-risk way perhaps than what I did. But you have to assess it for yourself. What kind of discomfort within your career are you comfortable with, right? And then do it in a more stepwise manner, so to speak. So that's the journey with regard to moving to India. And then pivot started because I had come across a lot of people in my own personal network who had been thinking about not just changing jobs, but really reevaluating their career deeply from a domain perspective, industry perspective, or even the employment model. Like, for example, they had been in full-time careers, they wanted more flexibility, so they wanted to become a freelancer or consultant, those kind of things. And it started with just my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. But when I saw her journey transitioning from a very stable career to something in media and entertainment, in fact, it just opened my eyes. I saw that there were so many loopholes, so many gaps in what the world provides as a support system to those people today. And I just started talking to people and realized there's so many people who are considering a transition, but they get daunted because, again, there is nothing to really support them, right? Or they try it and the journey is very, very stressful and really not that all that great. So that's the reason I felt like something like Pivot was needed, that provides a one-stop solution for anybody who's going through a major career transformation, not necessarily just changing jobs from one company to another, but reevaluating some key element of their career. So yeah, that's the genesis.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I love that story. And I bet both Mridu and I felt really, the same feelings as your wife was feeling, or like even some of your friends were feeling. In fact, something that I can share personally is that I have always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I think I always kept delaying it, thinking that, okay, it's going to happen when I hit a certain number in my bank account, or it's going to happen when I feel more settled. But exactly like you said, I think you know when the timing is right, and a lot of people on LinkedIn itself know that they want to do it at a certain point when they're not learning or they're not excited about work anymore. And I'm so glad something like this exists, because many of us can definitely relate to what you felt, or what we felt, right? Moving on, Midhu, would love to know from you. um, I know for a fact that you started. You were already as a part of Network TV 18, and you were getting all these amazing gigs. How did your journey happen, and how did you take that plunge? So, okay, I'm now going to be in a consulting role, and I'm going to now try doing this more full time than before.
So I think I was always a very risk averse person. I was a very happy employee. I did not have that pinpoint that, oh, is this what my life is going to look like 20 years later? I loved my job. I mean, I'm still very privileged, and that's the reason I'm still doing some of it and not like completely out of it, because I genuinely was very passionate about journalism and stories. And when I did my first masters, initial few years I spent as an investigative journalist, traveling all throughout rural India, uncovering corruption, making documentary films on morbid issues like children under 5 dying of malnutrition and manual scavengers and child labor and all of that. And I think those first few years were perhaps the most satisfying for me, because as a 20 something year old, to get that experience, to travel all over the country, and it is very humbling. And back in the early 2000s, we did not have comfortable hotels and ATM machines, and we carried large amounts of cash to do these week long shoots, and it was scary as hell, but it taught us so much in that process. And then I moved on to business journalism. Again, that was something new. I was leading a team at a very young age, creating a show, weekly show that became a daily show. Then I moved on from that to another space where I was working at a network level. So I think in this whole media career journey also, I've had smaller different journeys, which is what has kept me in the media for this long. If I was a daily news reporter, perhaps it wasn't my calling. It's a calling for a lot of people to report on breaking news. I would have burnt out, and I would have not liked to follow, say, one beat for the rest of my life. And that's what I think led me also to entrepreneurship, because I felt like now I need a change. I've realized this is a pattern with me, that every few years, or every 7 8 years, I have the 7 8 year itch, and I want to to switch things up and challenge myself and do something totally new. So with entrepreneurship, honestly, when I started out, it was a college project. It was a UCL project, which was for assignments and for trying out everything. I was participating in pitch day. Literally, I thought of the name just by those Google name generators, because it was 4 in the morning, and I had to submit my pitch day application by 9 a.m. And I had returned from a travel from somewhere, and I was dying for lack of sleep, and I just wanted to give it any name and just get started with it. So not the best way to start out, but honestly, once I started working on it, I kind of fell in love with it, and I fell in love with the problem, and uh, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And then my forte of communication and public speaking and everything came together, and I've connected the dots that, okay, this is one part that I can add to my. This is a skill that even mid career professionals, even CXO level people uh, are still seeking. It is not taught as well in our schools or our colleges or our offices, because everyone just learns on the job. You learn how to talk and you learn how to write, but nobody gives you a structured guidance. And I thought that a lot of people can use that structured guidance. So the first cohort and the first course started like that, and now hopefully it will move on to many different offerings with different experts coming on board, and helping people with the skills that we require for jobs of the future. And yeah, so I think at this point in time, I'm at a good space. I do a little bit of one-on-one coaching for senior leaders when it comes to leadership communication, and I run the communication cohorts, and I'm exploring expanding into different courses, which should happen in due course of time. Yep. So
Great. Yeah.
did I digress from your question just now?
A little bit, but not that much. Like I did get what I was trying to get, but I love hearing your story about how you thought about it. So that was interesting. Arjun, we already have a couple of questions, so I'm going to ask you one from something that the audience is asking right now. So Anshuman asks that what are, because you said that your mid-age professions are usually the ones with like a career experience of around 10 to 12 years, where they feel like they want to pivot from a certain industry or a certain role. They usually come to you. So what kind of signals do you see in most of them, and how do you really talk to them? Like what are the kind of areas of distress? I think one thing you already pointed out is from your experience that you feel like a lot of people feel like they're not learning enough on the job. A lot of people feel like they could do much more, or maybe they're just not that happy in their current roles. So
Right.
what other things do you see, and how do you tackle them at Pivot?
Sure. I mean, I think there's been significant amount of learning that I've experienced on this front, and LinkedIn has played a vital role in helping me get there. Just in terms of looking at other folks' content, what they talk about when they're talking about their career journeys, and also one-on-one connections that I've had. So just to give you an idea, I've had about 1,500 conversations over the last 2.5 years.
Wow.
Most of them attributable because of Pivot. I'll be very honest, right? So that's been great, and I love doing that. That's the best part of my job, to be honest, because what I've realized is while human beings have overlapping goals and problems and challenges in life, the way they deal with it is usually unique, right? So no two career transitions or career journeys are exactly the same. And because of that, we have initially we were not sure how to handle it, but over a period we have started to identify certain patterns and then personalize our solutions to people in in achieving their goals or overcoming those challenges that they have. So in terms of the major points of signals or distress, I broadly categorize them in two ways. One is push factors and the other are pull factors, right? So when we are in our careers, typically the impetus, the motivation can come either because you are really disgruntled or unhappy with regard to something specific in your existing career, and that could be many, many different things. Like, for example, growth is one of the key ones, meaning you're not happy with the amount of opportunities you're getting or the rewards that you're getting, or the learnings you're having, right? So that's one of the key areas. Apart from that, there are a lot of people who do experience some evolution in their career priorities over a period of time. Like, for example, when we are in our 20s, we might have a little more time
Hmm.
because we don't have, let's say, family responsibilities.
Yeah.
And just this is just an example. I'm not saying that people in their 30s are necessarily always more busy than people in 20s, but generally we see that evolution in our lives. And once you're in your 30s, you might want something which is not as, let's say, burning you out, where you're working 12, 15 hour days. A lot of people in certain kind of professions, especially like sales, for example, do get burnt out after a period of time, because sales and some of the other careers can be extremely demanding. So over a period of time, your priorities change. You might have been okay doing it and you might have even loved it, but the world is not static. The world is evolving very rapidly, and we as humans naturally evolve alongside the world. So when that happens, it's okay for our priorities and interests to evolve as well. And so I may be okay with pushing myself very hard in my 20s, but I may not be okay doing that in my 30s. So I want to do something different, right? So these are some of the push factors, I would say. And then the pull factors are where you may not necessarily find something that you want to change with regard to your current profile. Like Mridu was talking about how she, loves being a TV anchor and media journalist. And there are many people who don't have any qualms and they're okay with, some things if they're not working out in their current career. But more than that, it's something out there which they are seeing more and more of, which is really, really attractive to them. It could be something they're very passionate about. Like, for example, if you want to, provide coaching or mentorship to
Mhm.
people, help them build their own careers in the same field that you have been doing, but you're doing it in a new way, right? So far you've just been a working professional, but now you're trying to impact other people's lives in a positive manner. So that could be a kind of the reason for your transition. Apart from that, there's so many new age careers also coming up. I mean, if you think about product management, it's just a 10-year-old career. If you think about prompt engineering, that's a 2-year-old career. If you think about content creation, that's a 4 or 5-year-old career. So it's still establishing its roots, but it is turning into somewhat of a career. So there's so many new options coming up, and people are getting more and more awareness around these options, right? So um, it's natural to then feel that, okay, there is something new which might be a better fitment for my interest, my skills, my priorities. And because of that, you might get pulled into those new directions as well. So yeah, broadly speaking, Tanya, those are the two types of reasons that people make a transition.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that's really, like, I feel like these are very pertinent in the sense that, especially in the current career landscape and work landscape, like you mentioned, there are a lot of people feeling very uncomfortable in their jobs right now because they don't know what the future looks like, and they think that other careers might be more attractive, or they need to upskill to, completely different industries to really still stay relevant. Mridu, because we both were journalists, and we both have seen, like, the industry evolve, and I think later we can obviously have Arjun also come in to talk about like dual careers, or even trying out your very, what I like to call it, like slowly launch into becoming a creator or even becoming an entrepreneur, where you're like dipping your toes into it, seeing how, if you have enough audience or enough people like supporting you, and LinkedIn is a great place to do that. And our topic today, of course, is if people can explore LinkedIn to become entrepreneurs, and entrepreneurship can look different ways, right? Like how you mentioned that you're still working with your previous company as a consultant, but you're of course trying your own thing. How did you do that, and how would you suggest somebody who's trying to do that in a full-time career right now, trying to think of alternative ways of earning? We sadly live in an economy where people have to think of like having 2 or 3 careers now. That's something we're seeing as a very common trend, and people want to have alternative sources of income for a better and secure future. What do you think about that, and how have you done it, and how would you tell somebody who's trying this out very secretly or not so secretly to explore it?
Yeah. So I think the first thing, so to me, doing the right thing is very important. And for me, the first thing was also because I'm in a public, there's a public reputation that I have, which I will not put at stake for anything else. So the first thing to do was to read my employment contract and see that am I even allowed to do a side hustle.
Hmm.
I do not, absolutely do not encourage moonlighting if your employment contract does not allow it. And you should read that very, very thoroughly and figure out what is it that you can do or cannot do. Some companies are okay with it, some are not. In my case, we are not allowed to have as full-time employees, one, TV journalists do not get the time or the bandwidth to do anything else. It's very long and very hectic hours. So we are left with no bandwidth to do a side hustle even if we want to. And secondly, the contract did not allow me to do to run a business or have an alternate source of income from a business. So the first thing to do was to figure out that how passionate about this idea am I. uh, is it if it's a trade-off, if I'm asked to choose between my job and my and mental leap, what would it be that I would like to sacrifice? So it's as simple as that. Secondly, obviously there's a financial angle to it, because when you're in a job, you have a certain number hitting your bank account every month, and when you have worked for as long as I have, that is a habit, that is a lifestyle. To anyone who says that money is not important, I don't think that's true. Money is important, and money buys you freedom to explore. So why do I still continue to do a consulting role? Of course, one part is that I love anchoring and I enjoy it, and I love content, and it keeps me in touch with my network. And the second part is I am getting a fixed income every month, which I can play around with and explore, and I can put in on mental leap. And tomorrow, if this venture fails, I'm still at almost zero risk right now, right? So that's the risk appetite that I work with. Now, there are entrepreneurs who are willing to put their life savings into an idea and raise VC funding, have that pressure, deal with numbers every month, and that's fine. That is the way they function, and that is so. It's very important to be self-aware of what is the pace of life that you want.
Hmm.
um, and that to me was very clear that I want a slower life. I'm not getting out of a 12-hour, 14-hour, 18-hour job to get into another thing that is occupying the same amount of time. I want free time. I want to be able to focus on other things in life. I want more flexibility, and I want to literally own my time, which is why I worked this out. Secondly, obviously, I'm very lucky and privileged. Not every organization does this, not every employee gets it. I have worked with this organization for a long time. I have established my credibility, my trust, my relationships within the organization. They see value in my work. I see value in working with the teams that I work with, and I like the work that I do, which is why this is a win win for everybody. Otherwise, if you're not indispensable to your company, then this is not going to work out. So then be ready to either do freelance gigs in your industry and do a side hustle, or stick with your job. I would still say don't do it secretly. A lot of people do that. I put a lot of emphasis on doing the right thing and having your reputation intact, because I think everything else can be earned, but once your reputation is lost, it's very tough to get that back. So that's the way I did it, and I would say that it's not easy, but please have the courage to ask. A lot of people, when I went to London to study, my organization did not have a policy of giving sabbaticals, but I asked for it. And we got into a conversation around it. And it took us a few months to get there to a place where, there was a policy put in place, and approvals came from the highest levels of the organization. But I got a sabbatical to go and study in London and come back and join the organization after one year and a few months, because I had the courage to ask for it. A lot of people would just say, "Oh, this organization never gives sabbaticals. Let me just put in a resignation and go." So ask for things more often than not. If you have built your credibility, your trust, and your relationships in an organization over a period of time, you will, and if they value you. Today, I think we are in the best space. People are aware, people are open. A lot of organizations are evolving and are willing to do anything to retain good employees. So it's not all doomsday, no matter how much we speak about HR folks not doing enough for us. I think a lot of organizations are doing a lot of good work. So stay optimistic and try these things out.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Madhu. That's great, and I love that you built ecosystems in your career to support you and not really give up. I think whenever and always had a plan B. I think that's always a great idea. Something that I actually wanted to ask you, Arjun, that a lot of people must be coming to you now, very scared about. I think we mentioned this about like their jobs, about like AI disrupting a lot of jobs, and we know for a fact that if people are not upskilling, they might be under the threat of like either losing their job or having to reassess their career options. Would love to know from you, how do you talk about these topics? How do you, just a second, yeah, how do you tackle these topics, and how do you help people figure out that ecosystem and that support system, whether on LinkedIn or separately, while they're going through this transition? I think you and I, actually all three of us, know how difficult it is to take these career decisions. So would love to know how do you really help people build these ecosystems that can help them take people?
Sure. Yeah. So I think, to be honest, most of the support and solutionizing that we do happens through our platform Pivot, right? And that's kind of, in a way, like what I described earlier, is a one-stop solution to find all the structure and support system you need to implement your career transition successfully, right? Now, what does it mean that you get the structure and the support system? So, the first thing that we realized when we were starting to, tackle this problem is that when people go through a career transition, and Tanya, I don't know if your and Ridu's experience has been like that. At least mine was, and a lot of people I've spoken with have. Things are very scattered and ad hoc, right? When people are transitioning, it's not like there is a ready to implement playbook out there. You just have to read the manual and sort of apply it, and everything works out. A lot of people have really no idea where to even get started because it's so overwhelming to do multiple things simultaneously, right? For example, forget about entrepreneurship. Even a simple, let's say, full-time job to a full-time job switch, but in a new domain or in a new industry, can be challenging because you have to definitely network with people in the new industry, right? So far, if you have spent, let's say, majority of your career as a media journalist, but you're trying to become an entrepreneur, Mridu, I'm sure maybe you had good contacts, but not every media journalist would have that, right? So most people, in fact, would not. So you have to figure out how do you bridge that network gap. And I mean, as great as LinkedIn is in terms of connecting people, it also is a cesspool for ghosting, right? There is just not enough that you get back immediately. I think, Ridu, you described that you reached out to 300, 400 people, 3 people signed up, which is great, but still a 1% response rate, right?
Absolutely.
So you need to be very thick skinned to make cold networking work on a platform like LinkedIn. So there is a lack of support system as well today. And that is what we wanted to bridge for the community in terms of firstly providing some sort of a roadmap that you can utilize to structure your to organize your transition journey, right? And like I said earlier, that no two journeys are exactly the same. You have to build a structure which is not very rigid and doesn't allow for flexibility and personalization. So we have provided that sort of flexible structure, so to speak, which allows you to use our roadmap to know what things you have to work on, and be able to transition successfully. But at the same time, know that you might need to do things slightly differently compared to an average career transitioner as well. So you utilize that roadmap. I'll give you a very quick example. So you might have used some health and fitness apps out there, right? That let you track your calorie intake, that let you track like what kind of workout sessions you're doing. So even though they might recommend similar diets, they might recommend similar workouts to people, but ultimately people can also curate their own diet. They can curate their own workout sessions differently from most other people on that platform. So it's similar in that nature, right? The other thing is the support system, and this is perhaps similar to Mridu, what you are doing through your platform, is we have built a community of about 200 plus industry experts on our platform who work in premium companies typically, who have achieved a certain level of success in their own careers and have also been able to positively impact others around them professionally, right? So we are an invite only platform compared to some of the other mentoring platforms which have allowed anybody to become a mentor, because we want to definitely build some high quality mentorship network here. So we have a very specific vetting criteria, and based on that, we onboard experts who are able to provide not just experience sharing and knowledge sharing. I think those things are important, but more than that, very tangible, stepwise action items that people can take to achieve their specific goals,
Yes.
right? So that's another area which we are trying to build as a support system for the community. So these are some of the core things that we are doing. The last bit I would say is, because AI is on everybody's mind, there is a lot of potential benefit of using this emerging technology for even the career transition use case, whether you are transitioning to a new full-time job or even an entrepreneurial role. A lot of the things that you have to do, in startup parlance, it's called jobs to be done, right? So that JTBD framework, when you look at a career transitioner has to do so many different things, like
Mm.
first get clarity on what they should be pursuing, network with people, bridge any skill gaps, optimize their personal brand or profile on LinkedIn and their resume, so many other things. A lot of these things are very time consuming today, and we are utilizing now AI to bring down that time and effort that it takes to implement some of these repetitive tasks, right? So yeah, these are some of the things we are working on.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Arjun. That's like a great strategy in the sense of not only how you're helping build a community around experts, but also how you figured out that there is certain JTPD, and like you're like literally taking people through the entire process in a very seamless way so that they know that it can be done. At the end of the day, you need a structure to make things happen. Another thing that I wanted to quickly touch upon before we move on to you, Mridu, to talk about this. We spoke about the push strategy on LinkedIn, how we cold DM people, or like we reach out to people and they tend to ghost. This is very common, and that's something that as a part of Creator Chart also I'll tell people that the best way to get really genuine leads is to create content that adds value. Something that you also touched upon, Arjun, that whenever you're trying to build an online presence or even create a community on social media platforms like LinkedIn, you have to provide value for people to like follow you or like follow your journey. Would love to know, Mridu, how did your content creation? I think you already touched upon getting a lot of opportunities, but how did getting genuine contacts or genuine leads happen with content creation for you?
So I think a few ways. One, exploring video formats has been great. And ironically enough, video is something I've been doing for 18 years on TV. But I was just not doing it for myself
Yeah.
on Instagram or on LinkedIn or on any other platform because it takes a little bit of effort. And also with us, once you've done, video editing and shooting and script writing and all of these things, uh, you don't want to do a shoddy job of it. Whereas in the entrepreneurial mindset, you have to stop chasing perfection and aim for progress. So that has involved a mindset shift for me. And I've tried to become a little more consistent with my videos, still not as much as I would like to, but I'm getting there. So I found that definitely adds more value to people's lives. A lot of people have reached out to me, and especially for the kind of work I'm doing, if you don't see and hear a communication coach, then you don't know how good or bad they are, right? Like it's very basic,
Mm.
but it has taken me time to actually start investing in that particular feature and play with it. And we've spoken about this offline before. A newsletter is something that has been on my to-do list forever. I have not gotten around to doing it because content creation is also time consuming. And as an entrepreneur, you have 50 things to do in a day. And somehow this takes a backseat because there's always a bigger fire to put out somewhere else. So just trying to be a little more consistent with it. And I think just showing that consistency for the last few months, for maybe twice a week, sometimes thrice a week, sometimes, but averaging between 2 and 3, that has really helped. And that has actually proven to me that the power of compounding really works even on LinkedIn, just like it works for everything else in our life, whether it's mutual funds or fitness or whatever else. And you got to stop looking at the returns in the short term. So you've got to stop looking at the impressions and the likes and the vanity metrics that we all get caught up with.
Thank you for
In the
saying that.
long term. So in the long term, it definitely has an impact. And as little as last 2 or 3 months that I've been more consistent with just posting and storytelling and talking about, not just sharing knowledge around public speaking. Off and on, I've spoken about my entrepreneurial journey. I have talked about how I hate selling, but it's something I'm learning because as an entrepreneur, if you can't sell, then you are doomed to fail, and unless you want to totally outsource your selling to somebody else, and you know your product or your service best, and you've got to be persuasive and communicative about it with people. So these are the few things that I'm trying to be consistent with. But I think just consistency has really, really worked. It's not the carousals, it's not the fancy designs, it's not the should I use picture or text, or should I use this or that. I think it is just, at the end of the day, it is just showing up and doing the work, and creating value for the community, and that pays off in the long run.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Vidhu. I completely agree with everything that you've said. I have firsthand also experienced the same, and I need to get to video, so that's something I'm behind on. But thank you so much for sharing your strategy, Arjun. I see you posting really good content on LinkedIn, and I think naturally, it comes very naturally to you. At least that's what it seems, that you're able to create very good seamless content every other day. I'm not tracking how often you're posting, but would love to know your strategy and how much that has helped to get to your journey. I think you already spoke about how that's helped you get the right, your ICP right, to figure out, get feedback for your product, have conversations with different kind of people. But how has the content creation part helped you grow your business in other ways? Like I said, getting leads, maybe exploring different parts of your business. In fact, I love the how you're leveraging tech and making the process seamless for you. And all three of us sort of are in the services business space, and I know how much effort it takes to even integrate tech as non-tech founders. All three of us would love to know how that's really helped in hiring, in getting different kind of leads, and also how you've just embraced content creation as a form of selling, I guess, your business and the work that you do.
Sure. Just before I answer that, I do want to give a shout out to the people who have joined today's session. Especially, I see a few friends in the community, Anshuman and Varsha are here. So thanks for asking those great questions. Oh, okay. Thanks for asking those great questions, everybody. And just, yeah, so to answer your question, Tanya, I think, in terms of the content creation, by the way, I have gone from 2 times a week to 3 times a week. Wow. Like, major transformation, right? Just from two to three.
Takes a lot
But
of
it,
effort. We know it takes
yeah,
a lot of effort.
it does. It does. Especially like, Mridu was saying, as a entrepreneur, you have so many other files to put out. So unless you are having a ghostwriter create your content, it takes and you want to create value add content. So it takes time and effort, right? So the other thing I want to say, you said something like, it seems like it comes naturally to me. I don't think it does, to be very honest. I'll
Really?
be very, very candid. When I first started, or before I first started posting on LinkedIn, I've always been somewhat anti social media because of the mental health toll it can take, right? And I used to be that person in a crowd of friends or colleagues who used to say like, why are you on Insta and why are you on LinkedIn? Like, stop doing all that stuff. And then now I'm a changed person, so people think I have switched sides. But I do want to say that I am not a natural at this at all, actually. um, Roger Federer came out with a video which has gone viral recently. One of his commencement address at, I believe it was Dartmouth, which
But
where he basically said, yeah, he basically said that throughout his life he's been told how effortless he makes the game of tennis look, and that's true. He does make it look effortless, but the point is missed that he has put in insane amounts of effort and work behind making it look like effortless, right? And I don't think I should be comparing myself to him, but I would say that the journey and the feeling is similar, right? Like, people miss what you have done when you were not successful because you're not in the limelight, right? So they look at your day 2000 as your day one and think that it was like a quick and easy journey because they're looking at you when you're successful. So it has taken a lot of experimentation, a lot of hard work, a lot of failures, and not being able to achieve what I thought I want to get to where I am. And I mean, there is a long way to go still, right? I think even people like who have joined us in the audience, and maybe Tanya, you yourself and Ridu, you've made a great impact. I think Anshuman, for example, has maybe 40, 50,000 followers, and he's so regular in content creation and has created a tremendous community around him. I'm learning from people like Anshuman and people like you. So I think still a long way to go. In terms of strategy, I have just realized one thing, which is you just be genuine and you add value to your community. These are the two things that you need to focus on. Everything else is noise, right? The formats are noise. The Frequency to some extent is noise.
Agreed.
um, the fact that you have to use hooks and all that, yes, it can help you in the short term, but ultimately you have to create content that adds value, that resonates with people, right? And also you need to develop your own voice, your own authentic your brand, so to speak. And that those are the two key learnings that I've had. I'm trying to just stay true to that path. um, I think that was your first question. Let me know if you want me to still answer the second one. I know we are sort of over our time a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
think we can extend for another 2-3 minutes. Midhu, are you fine with that?
Yep, sure.
Let's let Arjun finish and then we can take it from there.
Sure. And I think sorry, what was the second question exactly,
The
Tanya?
second
Can you
question
just?
was that how do you ensure while being authentic and of course while being like you said, finding your voice, how do you ensure you're still like selling your services or your business? How do you attract like people to hire? I know you have a team of people working for you. How did you started that? Right now, I know I'm struggling. I know Mridhu is a solopreneur, so would take all the advice that you have under your belt.
Yeah. So firstly, I feel like today's users and consumers are very educated and aware about what exists in terms of solutions to their problems. In the sense, they may not know of every platform and tool that exists, but they largely know what will help them and what won't. So you have to stop selling today, right? You can't be that pushy salesperson who is trying to say that my product is the best and everything else is bad. I think for me that has been the one of the main strategies I've utilized, because I have always hated being sold to on the other side of the table, right? I never liked, I won't name names, but when I was transitioning from US to India and never worked in India, so I was applying to jobs, I was not hearing back, and I utilized I was on the one of the biggest job search portals in India, and I just created my profile because I wanted recruiters to reach out to me. And when I created my profile, more than recruiters, salespeople reached out to me from that platform offering their services. And that experience was so harrowing that I decided I want to create something in this space, but I'll never be that salesperson or
Yeah,
utilize that sales model. So when I create content, it's not necessarily about pivot, right? It's not necessarily about this is what we offer and you should come to us and seek us out. I may do that maybe 5 to 10% of the times, but even when I'm doing it, it's more about sharing a specific story related to pivot, right? It's, for example, certain users or certain mentors who have had a great experience on our platform, and have been able to achieve some transformational objectives in their career. So sharing those stories that might resonate with people. But more or less, my focus has always been on sharing my insights, sharing my stories, or highlighting other people's learnings and stories, right? Like, for example, one of the posts that did really well for me recently was talking about the USA team, a cricket team in the T20 World Cup. And if you look at their careers, I think, Mridu, you were talking about this earlier, the portfolio careers, right? I mean, some of the key players on that team have full-time engineering jobs, and they're just playing in the Cricket World Cup on the side, right? So when you see those kind of things happening and you post about it, it inspires people to get out of their comfort zone and look at their passion and their higher career objectives. So I think talking about those things can be very powerful, where you highlight these stories. Yeah, I think that's been helpful. And then the last thing I would say in terms of the question, obviously LinkedIn has helped shed a lot of light on our platform indirectly, because I am there, and people I work with are also there creating content and engaging with others. So that has been tremendously helpful in terms of collaboration opportunities and hiring opportunities. Also, LinkedIn has been extremely beneficial to us. I would say today it's an employer's market, so you shouldn't really face a lot of challenge. I think we were hiring for a role recently, and we posted a job post for it, and within 15 hours we got, I think, close to 700 applications
whoa,
on LinkedIn.
Wow.
So actually, that's a good and bad, right? The good is that yes, you have a lot of options. The bad is that people are sort of mindlessly applying to jobs
yeah.
where they don't have a great fit because of that single click feature that we have today. So I think it's a good or bad. You need to build in strong, internal processes and systems to filter out candidates where you're only talking to the serious ones. Otherwise, it's going to be just a mammoth effort to hire even a single person. Um, And collaboration opportunities have come organically to me, like the ones that that is happening today between the three of us. People are very, I mean, I won't say everybody, but a lot of people are very giving and sharing on LinkedIn.
Agreed.
And they do like to value other people who are putting in the work and effort, right? Anshuman and I have collaborated multiple times. Tanya, you and I are doing it for the first time, but I hope we'll do it again.
Yeah, of course.
So I think these kind of opportunities happen a lot just organically.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's a lovely way to end this live, and I think very actionable insights from both your experiences on LinkedIn. So I'm really happy that I picked the right people for this topic, which I'm really glad about. Thank you so much for taking out more than an hour actually to talk about this. And like Arjun and Mridu said, just be yourself, be consistent. Be find your own voice, be authentic, and even as an entrepreneur or a future entrepreneur, just find that community on the platform by providing value, and I think you'd be in a great space. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I think some questions and some insights that we couldn't get to because we were having such a great conversation, I'll let Arjun and Mridu respond to you after this live, and I'll also be there in the comments. And please follow both of them if you're on my page. And of course, happy to work with you guys again as always. Thank you so much, guys, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you so much for having us, Tanya.
Sure. See you
Great.
guys.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Anya. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.